When looking at NES Tetris's level select screen, you will see the levels 0 to 9 available, and levels 10 to 19 are accessible via holding the A button when pressing start. However, all other levels can actually be accessed via a bug in the game's handling of the selection cursor. Let's walk through how it works. On the level select screen, the game displays a flashing cursor on the currently selected level, and on the B-type screen, a second non-flashing cursor marks whichever of the height and level is not currently being edited. Pressing A will switch between which cursor you're controlling. Since the on-screen X and Y coordinates of each height and level aren't the easiest to calculate from the number, the game utilizes a lookup table to determine where to place the sprite for the editing cursor. This table contains in order the X and Y position for each level 0 to 9, followed directly by the X and Y position for each height 0 to 5. The blinking cursor's position is, therefore, stored as a simple index 10 to 15 for that table. When you're editing the height, your cursor position is 10 to 15, and when editing level, it is 0 to 9. Crucially, anytime you exit the B-type level select or start a game, your cursor position is loaded from the current selected level in order to prevent entering the A-type screen while editing the board height. However, the devs forgot to account for this in the built-in reset code. Pressing start while also holding A, B, and select will automatically warp you to the copyright screen. This is actually not a real reset of the system where the game reboots and the startup routines are run, but the software equivalent, where it's no different from pressing B on a screen to return to the previous. Because of this, the memory remains as it was, and this allows for a number of glitches, the most famous of which being line clear storage, where you use the reset code while a line is being cleared, and the game will retain that line clear to be scored on the following game that you play. The particular bug we're talking about here, though, is that the game will retain its selection cursor position, and this allows us to enter the A-type level select while the game thinks we're modifying the height. Now, what happens when we're on the A-type selecting height? Let's walk through the routine. To move the cursor, there are 3 different functions. First is swapping the cursor between the height and level selection. Second is moving the cursor around the height selection, and third is moving it around the level selection. The game initially tests to see if any of A, up, down, left, or right are held. If this test is passed, it then does a check to see which game mode is active. If B-type is active, the game proceeds to run a check for the A button and determine whether it needs to swap between height and level. After that, it checks the current cursor index, and if it's less than 10, jumps to the level select code, otherwise it runs the height select code. However, if we go back to the test for A and B type, the game is actually coded to jump directly from there to the level select routine when it comes up as A type, since there would be no reason to run the cursor position logic on a screen where it would never apply. The result is that we run the routine to move the cursor for the level select while the cursor is on an index which should correspond to the height select. Moving on to the actual cursor moving routine, the game, depending on whether the direction pressed is up, down, left, or right, will add or subtract 1 or 5 from the cursor position index, and then check whether the new position is in bounds. For pressing up and down, this check looks for whether the index is greater than 9 or less than 0. Because of this, attempting to move an out-of-bounds cursor up and down doesn't work. However, the left and right checks both test for the exact numbers -1 and 10 to make sure things are in bounds, meaning that left and right can move freely once out of bounds. Once the position is verified to be quote-unquote in bounds, it will be written directly to the selected level. So to start in level 29, go to the B-type height selection, pick height 5, reset using AB start select, which does require a bit of extra effort. You have to be holding B when you enter the level select, otherwise when you press B, it'll just take you back to the music. Then after you've reset, you can return to the A-type height selection, press right 4 times to move the cursor to level 19. Then when holding A and pressing start, that should add 10 and take you to level 29.